Okay, so I told you that there would be another engine coming into the Cloverdale Transit Authority this week, and here it is. There's some concerns. Can you tell? This is Chris with the Cloverdale Transit Authority. That's the model railroad here at our house in Ohio, and this was another great, very, very reasonable eBay find. Matter of fact, I can't believe other people didn't bid on this. Based on the description, based on the photos, but it needs a little cleaning. But they said it's had light maintenance and smoke works, headlamp works. It runs forward and backward. So I'm only a little bit concerned because of the fact that they seem to pack it pretty well. Maybe not as much padding as should have been, but the knuckle draggers there at the post office seem to find pleasure in throwing this around. So I'm going to grab a knife and we're going to open this up together and see if there's major disappointment in store. So, and once we pull it out of there, assuming there isn't major disappointment in store, it looks like that end of it is just really all padding, which is fine. Then we're going to see it here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to unwrap it and then oil it up. Let's take a look at the tender first. This is a steam engine, Lionel steam engine from 1953, and that looks pretty good. It's really clean. It's a 2046 whistling tender. Looks like the wiring has been resoldered, and it looks like everything's pretty clean. Nice rolling trucks there. The contacts seem to be pretty good. This one seems to be loose, but it's on a spring. So we're going to take a look at that. Anyway, there's the tender, and now the star of the show. And this is a big one, folks. This one's a couple of inches longer than the rest of the post-war Lionel stuff we have. Oh boy, the 2055. And I got to tell you, just like our GP7 yesterday, this looks better than it did in the pictures. Still has the decal up there talking about how to clean the smoke, and that's what some of this stuff is here. It's the residue from the smoke. Has both of its jewels in the front. That's a good thing. This is a 464. It is a big engine. It's got a big motor in it. So we're going to oil this up just to be sure that it is well oiled. We're going to let it run, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about this engine and what Lionel did with this particular model, and how it plays into the overall scheme of post-war engines. Hopefully that's on camera. The scheme of post-war engines for Lionel. Back in a second. Well, as you can see, it runs, and I'm pretty excited about that. So let's talk a little bit about this engine. Of course, this was an eBay find. This is one of two locomotives that arrived this week at the Cloverdale Transit Authority, our model railroad here at home. And this one, I was really proud of being able to get this because nobody was bidding on this, and I couldn't believe it. I think there was one other guy bidding on this. And I mean, I got this for a third of what I see it otherwise online, but also at train shows and so forth. But this, again, is the Lionel 2055 model locomotive. It's a 464 Hudson, and it was produced in 1953 by the Lionel Corporation. And 464, I've got my fancy pointing stick here, basically means it's got 4 leading trucks, 6 drive wheels, and 4 trailing trucks. So anytime you see that designation, these 3 numbered designations for locomotives, steam locomotives, that's where that number comes from. Anyway, and it also came with a 2046 whistling tender, which works great, as you probably heard. But also in 1953, Lionel produced the exact same engine under a different number, the 685. I think that was really a matter of being able to sell more electric trains. But the original train was a Hudson type 3460 and made by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. And then, interestingly, in 1954, they changed the boiler front end, and they put actual running lights on it. This just has the jewels, but actual illuminated running lights. And then up here, and you've seen this maybe some of you before, this cylindrical item that's right on top of the smoke box, and that was actually an external feed water heater, so it would heat water from the exhaust in the smoke box to send back into the boiler, so it was already warm. It wasn't cold water going back into the boiler, so it was a little more efficient. But anyway, that's the real locomotive. In 1954, Lionel re-released this engine, put that external feed water heater on the front, put on the running lights, and reissued it both as the Model 665 and Model 2065. So, it was just a matter of sort of retooling some of this stuff and putting it out there. I mean, we see products do that all the time. Lionel was no different than that with their trains. Anyway, it weighs 3¼ pounds. This is one of the larger die-cast locomotives that Lionel put out in the early 1950s and late 1940s. It was as big, and the motor was almost as powerful as the 736, which came out. That was a Berkshire that came out in 1950. So that had 8 drive wheels in the middle. So this is pretty close to that. Pulling power is almost the same. So it's 11.5 inches long, and with the tender, it's 18 inches long. So it's a really big engine. This is the largest post-war Lionel die-cast engine that I have in the collection. But talking a little bit more about the eBay purchase, again, nobody was bidding on this thing, and the auction ended really late at night here on the East Coast. And sure enough, I got this thing, and I was shocked. The pictures, it was a little dirty. Actually, you see some of this residue that shows up on these, and it really comes from the smoke that the little smoke drops or smoke pellets are generating. And there's a few scratches here and there's a little dings on the tender, but they said in the description it had received minimal service recently. The smoke function worked. The E unit, which is the little switch that's always in the top of these, that either goes from position of being able to directionally run through the transformer forward or backward, or it moves over the other side and it just goes forward. That works just fine, and it goes forward and backward. The whistle and the whistling tender works great, which is something that usually needs a lot of service. But other than it being dirty and a few dings, I was like, this is a really good looking engine. The headlight works. It's still got both of the jewels for the marker lights. So I was really shocked when nobody bid on this, or again, one other person. So I got it, oiled it up. I could tell that it had been oiled, got it running. You saw the running footage. That was before it got cleaned up. You saw when I opened the package. And I could tell it was struggling when I first got it going. You saw the footage here in this video when it was moving, but it clearly was a little sluggish. It didn't really want to move, but I will tell you that it got moving. What this tells me is it just really needs a good cleaning. That means I need to take it to my train whisperer and gets that shell off, gets all the drive rods off, cleans everything, oils everything, cleans the electric motor inside. And those are things that with a diesel locomotive like we saw earlier this week that came into our railroad, I don't have any problem with working on that stuff. But when we start having to take off all of these drive rods and everything, I just get a little nervous. I don't have that good of dexterity to do that. It's always good to take photographs of this stuff, but I just really rely on people like Kyle to be able to service this. So this will go in here in a month or so and get a good cleaning. But what I do is I get out a bowl, put hot water in it. I've got a hard bristle toothbrush, and I scrub the outside of this engine. I don't get it too wet. I don't want it to get into the electrical work in there. And if it does, make sure it dries out really well. But I really scrub that body and get all that residue off there and then get into all the little nooks and crannies and clean all the dust that's inevitably in there, especially these little front stairs where they would climb up this to service the things that are on the side of the boiler. And, just really get that clean, let it, wipe it down, let it dry. And then I have another little hobby brush that's just a hard bristle, almost looks like a little paintbrush. And I spritz a little WD-40 on this because these are die-cast engines. And then I start kind of taking that and spreading it around, almost painting the engine with this and getting it into all the little nooks and crannies again. And then wiping it down. So it's almost like cleaning a pistol. If you've ever cleaned a pistol, you're wiping it down with all this preservative and cleaning any of the oil off of there. And then it really comes out. It really starts to shine. So you can see this compared to maybe some of the opening of the box. You can see how much cleaner it looks. And the little grab irons on the side, the little nickel grab irons on here are in really good shape and they're nice and clean. The drive rods probably need a little buffing down, but that's pretty easy. Now the tenders are always a plastic body with a metal undercarriage, and then these also have, all of these have metal trucks on them. So I did oil everything up, and with the tender, I just kind of wiped it down with a wet cloth and cleaned off some of this, dirt and what have you. And it didn't rub it too hard because I don't want to remove obviously any of the markings. But I did take my little toothbrush up here onto the simulated coal pile and kind of scrub that. Of course, coal's not supposed to be shiny anyway, but yeah, and it also has the bell is there, the simulated bell, and the simulated whistle is there. There are also little nickel items. I mean, everything is complete. And again, other than it needing some internal cleaning and going over, because who knows? I mean, they said this received light maintenance. They probably did not take the shell off, but that's what's coming. And then this thing will run like a top. Right now, it runs pretty well. So I'm really excited about this. I'm glad that this again is another locomotive we're adding to our railroad. In addition to getting that the diesel, the GP7 that we had earlier this week, we have another GP7 dummy coming. It's the same type of GP7, but there's no motor in it, and you can lash that onto the back so it looks like a double locomotive. And I'm going to go over that because that has a special significance to our specific region. And I'll talk a little bit about that when that comes in. It's probably coming in tomorrow, but won't get till maybe next week. But I wanted to show you this, with the two locomotives coming in. There haven't been a lot of train shows, and I've sort of been selling off some things that I don't I don't need any more or taking up room in the basement, and taking that money and putting it very frugally into things for the model railroad. And when I see these prices on stuff like this, you know, I really didn't expect for this to sell at the price that it sold at. I figured somebody's going to outbid me, but hey, what the heck. And then I got a notification right as I'm getting into bed that you won this auction. So I was really excited, and this came out of Michigan. Really nice fellow, and got this to me in just a few days. And I was a little concerned because, as you saw, that box was a little messed up, but where that box got dinged was just packing, wasn't actually where the locomotive is. So anyway, if you've got one of these in your attic or your basement, I highly encourage you to get it out, check it out. If it doesn't run or it looks like it's got some issues, you know, get it down to your local train store, or you can also message me and ask me if there's somebody that, you know, you think might be able to take care of that for you. Get it running. Your family's going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. And the nostalgia that these bring is just amazing. I'm just really thrilled to be working with my dad to do this sort of stuff, and my wife and I have fun with it. I had this running around on the kitchen table because don't quite have the railroad table set up yet, and she was just enthralled with it. She thought the whistle was great. She says, "Man, this is really a beautiful locomotive," and she even said, "You should just leave that track up there on the table all the time." Well, I don't want to do that because I'd like to use the table for table things, you know, but you know, it's real easy to throw the Lionel Fast Track together. So anyway, enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.